About the sort of retrofit stuff of any of the sort of classic cars that are being remade with electrics? Have any of those caught your eye?
Yeah, I mean, my favourite one to drive was I think a 1970s Range Rover that had been beautifully converted, and that was like we drove over incredibly rough ground up on a Welsh mountain. And it was like being in a boat on mildly rocky, rough sea. It just wallowed, because the drivetrain and suspension in those things is amazing. And it had no trouble at all. And that was an interesting thing. I've noticed that on two big, heavy 4x4 conversions, is when you're doing 5 or 10 miles an hour on boggy, soft ground, if you're in a combustion engine car, you're keeping the engine running, you're slipping the clutch, you've got to keep that momentum going. In this, it was... and you could see how much nothing. It would drive all day at that speed. It was using there was no force, no energy use. It's incredible. When you were driving along the road at 50 miles an hour, it was savage.
It's the 70s aerodynamics then came to work against
absolutely,
you.
Yeah. But then there's I haven't actually driven it. I've seen it. A beautiful, because I had a Land Rover Defender, was my last combustion car, which I kept for years, which we used on scrap heap. It was a real roughy-tufty old Land Rover.
You learned how not to take your elbow out on the window frame as you turn the steering wheel in that one.
Yes, in terms of human-machine interface, fairly basic. But I loved it.
Character for it.
Yes, but then there's some electric conversions now of Defenders that are legend, and that is I have to say, I'm tempted to, I mean, it is an expensive thing to do, but you could. I know someone who's quite near me who's a knackered Land Rover dealership, and I could probably buy a Land Rover Defender, a 90 Land Rover Defender with no engine or gearbox for not that much money, and then convert it. But I don't think I will. It's not necessary. But I'm so glad people are doing it. I mean, and that business, that industry, if you like, is expanding enormously. And that's one of the things I'm determined to do. It might not even still not be this year, but I will do it before I kick the bucket. Is we want to make an episode called Zap Heap Challenge, which is fairly obvious. I think all your listeners will know. So it's scrap heap, but with batteries. So it will be to build a machine that isn't a car out of old Tesla and Nissan Leaf batteries and motors and all that stuff. So we've got the teams that want to do it. So this is all from those people who are at the moment doing it, and they're desperate to do it. The original production company are involved in it to do it. We were going to do it last year. We had it all worked out. So hopefully we will be able to do that at some point.
Well, I think that would be fantastic to join up two of your key life
it would be
together.
Such fun.
Would be pretty ace, wouldn't it?
Would love to do that. Yeah, so that's at the moment a pipe dream, but it's a plausible one. But I mean, I think that is a fascinating. I think that hit the public eye. I think, although I'm not sure how many people knew at the royal wedding when they drove off in the E-Type Jaguar. Yeah. And when people heard, it took sort of a few days. I remember being, because I'd seen that car before they drove it, and that was electric, and people went, "What? Why is that electric?" That got a lot of people thinking about it and wondering what that was like. That was a beautiful conversion they did. That is, I think, brilliant. A brilliant way. And I think it depends on. So there's people I know who have classic cars. Chris Barry from Red Dwarf has some beautiful, amazing old classic cars. But I think it would be a tragedy to convert them. I want there to be beautiful old combustion engine cars around it for the village fete or the special motor museum, or goes out for a drive on a Sunday.
Steam traction engine is used today. Is that
exactly. Yeah, you don't want to get rid of it. You need those. I want a kid who isn't born for 20 years, who will never see combustion engines. Thankfully, they won't have to live with them. But then to go out one day
Why
and go,
does it rattle, Dad? What's that
all about?
Oh my
God, Grandad, what's happening in that car? There's a lot of explosions going on. Thankfully, they're inside a big tin can. I mean, it is the most, that I think is, you and I will hopefully live to see that, where young people ask, was it really like a big metal box at the front of the car which had explosions in it? Yes.
There's one that I always refer back to, and I'm sure you and I have talked about it. But I think it's on a Swedish Tesla forum as a random place. But it's a few years old now. But it's a spoof of an electric vehicle driver test driving an internal combustion engine for the first time.
Yeah.
And it talks about all those bits you've just talked about, and it just sort of points out what will our children say when we explain to them how we used to drive these petrol and diesel powered internal combustion engine vehicles.
Yeah.
They'll think we're absolutely nuts, won't they?
Yes, absolutely. And then because I remember I drove a beautiful American steam car on scrap heap, because I think we'd made steam engines or something, and it was exquisite. But the complexity of driving that machine, because it wasn't just a clutch and gear, but it had a big lever outside the door that engaged the. I can't remember what it was, but what was amazing? It was a really big, heavy car. It had it was burning what we'd call paraffin. What do they call kerosene? I suppose it had a kerosene burner that would go out. And that's what was creating the steam. And when he lit it again, this was a big car that weighed something like 2.5 tons. The car jumped. So that made you very, very nervous. He said, "Don't worry," and he had to He had a long sort of
match with a 3-meter pole.
It was that. He had to put it down a hole, and it would go boom, and the whole thing would shudder. And then but once that had amazing acceleration. Once you opened that baby up, it just shot off. It was amazing. But the complexity of driving that's what a child born in 10 years' time, when they first see a car, they go, "Oh my God, you had to put one foot down and then move the stick,
gears and clutches,
and then take the other foot off, and then
carries on running when you stop." Why is he doing that?
Yes, because I actually drove a combustion hire car 2 years ago in Italy with my wife, and it was so embarrassing. It was like I was a learner. It came back pretty quick, but the first 250 metres I stalled twice right on a roundabout in Italy. It get ever so moody. I just did the kangaroo because I forgot to put clutch. Oh my God, how does this thing work? It's amazing how you do. I'm old. I've been driving probably 40 years before I ever drove an electric car, so I was used to it then. But it has gone, that skill set.
A dying art, hopefully.
Yeah.